Welcome to episode 8 of the Perspective podcast. Paddy isn't here with us. Unfortunately, he's on a holiday I don't actually know where he's gone, but good luck to him. But we've got the cavalry to fill in. We've got a range of football supporters and indeed upcoming inspiring journalists that looking to break into the game. They're very talented and they're my friends as well. So I'll start off with Adam. Adam is a Everton supporter. How are you, Adam?
Yeah, not too bad, mate. Yeah, just still reeling from last night's defeat to Sheffield United. Letting a teenager score against us, very embarrassing, but it's to be expected. Life in Evertonian is what
Well,
it
I
is.
mean, we'll get into it later. The one thing I really want to get in with you is the progress under Carlo Ancelotti. I think it's a really interesting topic. We'll get into that later. Michael is a Wolves supporter. He also does the commentary for Wolves. Michael, how are you doing today?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. I'm also coming off the back of a defeat from yesterday against Tottenham Hotspur, but I don't know. I was in admiration of Tottenham, actually. I thought they were brilliant yesterday, so not quite Sheffield United. So it's glad I'm happy to be in Adam's company.
Well, hopefully it's not a depressing podcast. And we've also got Amos. Amos is probably going to be a happy Liverpool fan. Amos, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. I'm much more cheerful than the other two so far. Alison Becker, I think Everton would be delighted to have someone who could finish like that.
I can't believe you've mentioned his name already. So we've also got Sam on the show. Sam is an Ipswich supporter, diehard Ipswich supporter. Sam, how are you doing today?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you, mate. A bit of the old one out here, but not as sad Ipswich fan at the moment for once because Paul Cook's doing some good work at the moment. So yeah.
Well, hopefully long may it continue. Well, definitely. We'll start off. There's only one place to start off, I think, which is the FA Cup final. An absolute screamer from Yuri Tillemans sealed it for Leicester. Delightful scenes, especially with the fans as well. I'll come to Michael first. Michael, how good is Yuri Tillemans, and are Leicester an underrated side?
Yeah, I think Yuri Tillemans is probably the heart to that team. I saw him last season for the first time in the flesh at a Wolves game, and it was a really drab 0-0 between Wolves and Leicester. But it was the start of the drop-off for Leicester when they were falling out of the Champions League last season. But there was just watching Tielemans for the first time, so it's always different seeing a player in the ground, isn't it? And he was absolutely outstanding. His awareness is, for a guy as young as he is, obviously he's got quite a bit of experience now. You know, he started young, but he's technically so sound. And he was instrumental to that cup win. That goal was absolutely sensational. It's the best cup final goal I can remember. And in terms of Leicester, you know, I think they really do have the option to go really far as long as they keep him in the side. He's probably the most, you know, you got Vardy and Maddison and stuff, but he's probably the most important player they need to keep if they are to keep moving forward.
So yeah, I completely agree. They've got an outstanding array of talent throughout the squad, and I think what was so refreshing to see, Adam, was the kind of relationship between the supporters and the ownership of Leicester, right through with the manager as well. I mean, we saw, you know, the horrific incident that happened with Vichai, but what did you make of the Leicester City's performance? Do you think they deserved it overall? Do you think they were the much better side to Chelsea, or do you think it was just that one sheer effort of brilliance that separated the two teams?
No, I think Leicester fully deserved that win. I thought, you know, Tielemans in that midfield controlled the game. Guy Mowbray on commentary said the best player on the field has scored the goal, and I tend to agree with him on that one. I thought he was superb, just dictated the tempo of the play. He's a player I've really liked for some time now, and I think you take him out of that midfield and it's a completely different Leicester side. I thought, you know, you can always count on Vardy to work hard. I thought he and Nacho have been a great partnership over the last few weeks. But I think in that game, the better side won. I thought Chelsea were a bit off the pace. I thought there's a real hunger to Leicester's play, and a hunger I didn't really see in Chelsea, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Apart from maybe the last 5 minutes or so when Ben Chilwell had his goal disallowed, that was the only passage where I thought, oh, Chelsea might nick something here. But for 85 minutes, I thought Leicester were in control of that game. And off the back of that, I think it makes you wonder how they're going to fare in the Champions League final.
Yeah, well, we'll touch upon Chelsea in a bit. Before we touch upon Chelsea, I just want to come to Sam. Sam, what are your opinions on the job that Brendan Rodgers has actually done at Leicester City at the moment? Because they were last season, they were on course to finish in the Champions League, but then obviously they ran out of steam. A lot of the Leicester supporters feared that this might happen again. There is a race going on for top four, which we'll touch upon later. But how would you assess the job that Brendan Rodgers has done?
I think he's done a great job. I think he does get a little bit of stick for his previous with Liverpool, just slipping up, excuse the pun, in previous seasons. But yeah, he's got a great team there. I love watching Harvey Barnes and Jose Perez. It's a shame Maddison's been injured for a while because he's a great player, despite the fact he's played for Norwich. But yeah, I think Brendan Rodgers has been fantastic. I think he deserves a little bit more credit. You said how Leicester have been underrated. I still think Brendan Rodgers as a manager is a little bit underrated as well, just from football fans in general. But, yeah, I think, well, we can see now that end of season Champions League sort of battle is going to be really interesting. I think that shows how well Leicester has done this year.
Yeah, I mean, out of experience, Amos, you were you saw Brendan Rodgers when he was at Liverpool. What were your opinions of him when he was the manager of your side? Did you like the way he set up his teams? Do you think he sets up his teams differently to how we see now at Leicester City? What's your opinions on that?
I think he does get a lot of stick for a bad reputation, really, for the way he ended at Liverpool. People maybe don't think of him as fondly as they should have, because during his whole career, from what he did with Swansea, was incredible, getting him to the Prem, and then I think it was 11th place we finished in the first season. And then with us, the first season wasn't the greatest, but he was building something. And maybe the year with Suarez, where we came so close to winning it, just came a bit too soon for Rodgers. I think it just put too much pressure on him in that third season, which didn't go to plan, where we lost Suarez, which is a big factor.
Yeah.
And I think the whole time of us, what plagued him was poor defence. We just couldn't defend under him. So I think he is maybe harshly thought about amongst some fans. People do give him stick because of all the good character and all the classic David Brent sound bites he maybe comes out with at times. But without Brendan Rodgers, Jurgen Klopp wouldn't be able to have done what he's done. He gave a fantastic platform for what Liverpool have gone on to achieve. I'm not sure if Rodgers could have done that himself, but he had set the foundations. And let's not forget, I know Scottish League isn't the most competitive league, but he did a fantastic job with Celtic.
Yeah, very true.
Now with Leicester, he plays a great quality of football, great brand of football, and he's always done that. He doesn't change his philosophy. But with Leicester, just what Liverpool didn't have is just solid defence.
Yeah, you touch upon Brendan Rodgers' philosophy. It's a compliment to himself, really, that he's managed to be successful kind of wherever he's been, really. I mean, the project he had at Swansea, you touched upon what they wanted to achieve. He kind of developed them and then allowed Michael Laudrup who took over? I think it was, wasn't it? And they won the League Cup under with a very similar team that he adopted. So, he's done a fantastic job wherever he's gone. He touched upon Celtic as well. But another person who we were complimenting before the Cup final was Thomas Tuchel. He's done a stellar job. I think Gary Neville alluded to it. He said that he would be the manager of the season if he did indeed win the FA Cup and the Champions League. Well, that's not going to happen. Michael, how big was this defeat for Chelsea? Do you think this could severely impact their biggest game of the season, which is the Champions League final on May the 29th?
I think we need to be a bit careful when we have a look at it, because you got to remember only a week ago we were looking at Chelsea versus Man City, and when Chelsea beat Manchester City in the league, people were saying, well, what impact is this going to have on the Champions League final for Manchester City as well? And there's still a couple of games to play for Chelsea, big games as well between then. And you do feel like if they come on top in the game against Leicester midweek and they do secure that top four place, suddenly that we'll be one game away from the Champions League final, 2 past the FA Cup final, and I think attitudes will have changed. I mean, you said it there with, about what Gary Neville said about Tuchel in terms of the manager of the season, if he's only been there half a season. You look at the likes of N'Golo Kante. I think Kante would be right in the mix for player of the season had he had a full season working under Tuchel. So, I don't think it's like the wheels have come off or anything like that. I think it's just a bad week. Leicester, there was a lot riding on that FA Cup final for 2 teams, and they came up against a really good team in Leicester City. And I think, if we'll get an idea over the next week if it's going to if this is maybe a bit of a rut that Chelsea are going to go through for the rest of the season now. But I think it's quite early days at the moment, and I still think it's a really balanced Champions League final. City favourites, but Chelsea are right in the mix.
Adam, do you agree?
To an extent, I do. I think that Chelsea side, what concerns about this Chelsea side is that they have blips, and you saw that against West Brom. That was, they were so poor that day, and I largely think, it all hinges on Kante and Mount for me. Kante in a defensive sense, Mount obviously in an attacking sense. If Mount isn't given that freedom, I thought Leicester were brilliant, by the way, in marshalling Mount. I thought they're brilliant, but it does depend what Chelsea turn up on the day in the Champions League final. And, I can see what Tuchel is trying to do there, but, there's been a couple of flashpoints where I thought, there's a few warning signs maybe. I don't want to just completely go off this cup final and say that, Chelsea, I think the wheels have come off. I don't think that. I think, they are a very good side, and when they're at full pelt, I can't see many teams beating them, including City. And we saw that a couple of weeks ago with Chelsea beating them 2-1. I just basically wonder which Chelsea are going to come up against City in the final. Will it be the Chelsea that beat them 2-1, or will it be the side that laboured against Leicester and were ultimately the second best?
Yeah, and also as well, I think with Chelsea, the thing that's really against them is that they're caught up in this top 4 race as well. So they've got a numerous amount of games coming up, important games coming up before the Champions League final, whereas City, they don't really have as much pressure on them in terms of the remaining fixture list, and building up towards it. They could test players in terms of who gets to start in the final and stuff. So Sam, how important actually is it tomorrow's game against Leicester City, because it's Chelsea-Leicester tomorrow in a crucial tie for the race for the top 4? Do they have to be somewhat concerned really as to how many important fixtures they have coming up for them?
I think they have to, yeah. But I think normally what you see with teams, they'll take one game at a time. Obviously, they've got to think about the Champions League in a couple of weeks. But they'll be looking to bounce back from that FA Cup defeat and sort of take on Leicester tomorrow. They've got Villa after that, so they'll be looking to get 3 points, obviously, from that game as well. I don't think they should be concerned. As I said, they just got to take one game at a time. Try and not let the psychology of that FA Cup defeat sort of override the game tomorrow. And I don't know, Adam was talking about which Chelsea's going to turn up. I don't think it really matters which Chelsea team turns up, because I think that City are just going to pull it out of the bag. I think they're going to do the job in the Champions League final. But
Clive Tilsley was saying he thinks the Champions League final's got 0-0 written all over it. But based on history, I mean, against all English sides in the Champions League final, they have been pretty boring. I mean, Moscow 2008, I think it was 1-1, and then it was 2-0, was it? Liverpool Spurs. The first goal in that game, it came so early, so I think it ruined the final. But touching back on top 4, one person who is going to be happy that his club's back in the mix is Amos. A mad turn of events, dramatic drama with an Allison header. I tried to tell him to not mention it too much when he came on here, but he's obviously going to do it. So Amos, now's your moment. What do you think of the performance from Liverpool first off?
Well, it's a bit like we've been all season. Well, since December onwards. where it's just something's not clicked for us, where we've had possession, but just finding that final ball or that final touch in the box to finish a team off, it's just not been there. So it was a bit of a frustrating afternoon. And I think the last 2 games of the season will be a bit like that against Burnley and Palace.
You think you'll struggle?
Of course, because I think that's what we've done all season. I feel more comfortable probably. If we had Chelsea, I'd probably feel a bit more comfortable because I think they'd have to go for it just as much as us. Playing teams who have to sit back, who are happy to sit back, who got nothing to play for, they'll be just happy to frustrate us. But of course, when you've got Alisson coming up and heading home, sometimes we've always been a team who's had goals from everywhere, and I didn't think it'd be so literal up until yesterday. But
I mean, his interview after it was emotional because he's obviously he's had a horrible season in terms of personal circumstances as well. And to be honest with you, I didn't think it was Liverpool's greatest performance. You can come in, anybody could come on this and to see what they think of it. But yeah, I still think there's a long way to go. I think it's Leicester on 66 points, Chelsea are on 64 points, and Liverpool on 63. From Michael, from your point of view, but how do you see the race for the top 4 going? Do you think Liverpool sneak it now because of the game tomorrow against Chelsea and Leicester?
Yeah, I think so. I think they might sneak it on goal difference as well, because what Liverpool really want is for Leicester to beat Chelsea, but I don't think that will happen. I think there may be a bit of a hangover from the FA Cup final, as may have been seen in a Athletic article about it, where I think Jamie Vardy had a nice Mackey's breakfast on the Sunday. So I don't know what state Leicester will be in. Obviously, it's a huge game, so it'd be foolish to write them off. But I do think Chelsea will come through it. And then Leicester, I mean, watching Tottenham against us yesterday, Tottenham are absolutely brilliant in the second half, and they looked really good. Good signs there. So that's going to be a really difficult game as well. And I think Leicester might do enough to win it, but, Liverpool can get a few goals in these games. There's what Amos said, these are 2 teams that like to sit behind the ball, but they're also safe from relegation. And we saw with Crystal Palace against Aston Villa, they played with a level of freedom. So whether that will actually help Liverpool, it might just do so. And Liverpool may be able to get a few more goals, especially if they perform offensively the way they did against Manchester United, where they could have had way more than they actually got.
Quickly, Sam and Adam. Sam, you first. What are your opinions on the top 4? How do you see it going? There's 2 games left for each side. How do you see it playing out?
See, this is the thing. This is where I was conflicted, because I actually thought that Leicester were going to get 3rd, Liverpool get 4th, and Chelsea get 5th. But then it feels so wrong to take that Chelsea team out of the top 4. I predicted a draw for the Leicester and Chelsea game. And then Leicester go on to beat Spurs. I think Liverpool win both their games. But yeah, it's just so weird with that. Just the prestige of Chelsea now, and like Tuchel in charge and all those brilliant players, not having them reach the top 4. Yeah, I've got to be bold, haven't I? And just go with
you got to go for one. Yeah,
I'll go with that though. Yeah, why not?
Adam, how do you see it playing out?
It's interesting. I mean, you got the luckiest side in the world, Liverpool FC. In the mix, so you can never rule them out, can you? I honestly, I'm not just saying this. I can see Burnley nicking a point at least against Liverpool in the next game, and I back Chelsea. I think they'll beat Chelsea. They'll beat Leicester on tomorrow night.
Yeah,
and I can see them beating Villa as well. So for me, it's got to be Chelsea getting that top 4 spot, along with Leicester in 3rd place. But just for me, I think Liverpool, I think they've done too little too late. For me, it's, they've got the win against West Brom. It's not enough, I don't think, for them to get into the top 4. I think it's Chelsea's to lose, basically.
Do you have anything to say to that, Amos?
I can't disagree, because even in the last few weeks, there's been games where against Leeds and Fulham, we conceded late on, and we were lucky against Fulham that we got one that was VAR. Disallowed for VAR. So it has been a struggle this season. And like I said, the 2 teams, I'm not underestimating what they can do against us. But I think we will pull something out of the bag. I think yesterday, could just be the confidence they needed. Thiago had an excellent game as well yesterday. Firmino's found a bit of form in the last few weeks. So I think Liverpool will just do enough. And I think it'll be Chelsea, Liverpool who'll get the top 4, and Leicester will be ones who miss out.
Well, it'll be interesting to see. It'll be an interesting final 2 games of the Premier League season, put it that way. But we're going to move from one Merseyside club to the other. Adam, I'm going to let you have your rant now about Everton. Where do we start? I mean, you had a perfect opportunity to make a statement, and then you let Daniel Jefferson, I think he's about 17 years old, score the goal that separated the two teams. So what did you make of Everton's performance first off?
It was appalling. I mean, I went into the game with very low expectations, and even those weren't met. I mean, I thought, you know what, a draw. I can see a draw being played out here, but no, I was, I wasn't at all shocked when Sheffield United took the lead. There were warning signs early on, and then, they score 7 minutes in pretty much, and it was pretty from the first whistle. We looked like we were conceding, and then from there, we looked nervous on the ball. I don't see where we're creating chances. We're so slow in the build-up. We never looked like we were going to score. We couldn't string 2 passes together. It was quite concerning. The lack of quality going forward. You look at Calvert-Lewin, Richarlison. They work the socks off, the pair of them, but they're chasing lost balls. Lost. I just can't see where we're going to score goals for the remainder of the season. James, he's very hot and cold. He's a phenomenal player. I'm not taking anything away from him, but there's times when you think you just need that little injection of tenacity in the midfield. I think Gomez, he's really had his day. I was disappointed yesterday because we had Alan, Decore, and James starting. I thought that was a recipe for success, but they look jaded. I don't know whether it's too many games played or what's going on there, but and then obviously on Twitter you always get this backlash against Ancelotti every time we lose from certain sections of the fan base. I think those are largely unfounded. I believe in Ancelotti, and I personally back him. I think the question is whether he'll want to, wait out another 2 windows to, create a team. Because obviously there's rumours that he's going to be pinched by Real Madrid, and it's whether he wants to continue this project that he started. And it's going to take at least another 3 transfer windows to sort that squad out. There's so much dead wood. The likes of Yannick Bolasie, Andre Gomez, they all need chipping, and we need players in, of course, and that's not going to happen in one transfer window. No. So it's whether he wants to wait that out, really, and I'm worried that he will just take the Real Madrid job.
It's an interesting one because I think Allegri's been thrown into that name as well, but that he had a success there, didn't he, at Real Madrid? He won the Champions League there. Michael, how would you assess Ancelotti's time at Everton so far? But I mean, it's 2 wins in their last 8 competitions overall. How would you assess the progress under Ancelotti? Do you think it is the players, as Adam is saying? Do you think he needs more time? What's your assessment on it?
Yeah, I think it's partly the players. I think there's a few things. I mean, I definitely think for starters, there's been progress. I mean, if you look at Everton, sort of this time last year, or this stage in the season, this time last season, under Ancelotti, you could just tell, I mean, they really had a lot of work to do, and it looked like a lot of that work had been done and addressed in the summer transfer window. A couple of issues I have is, one, I think is partly with system. Whenever I do watch Everton play, because he does tend to have more conservative midfield 2 or 3, Ancelotti, there does seem to be a bit too much of a gap between the midfield and attack. And I think sometimes you won't get those overloads that are needed to break teams down. And Ancelotti's never really been such a high pressing kind of manager. And then when you look at the players, I think they've got, your starting 11 on paper is really good. It is a top 7 starting 11. But when you go a bit further aside from that, and you look at the backup options, I wouldn't say it's even in the top 10 or 12 maybe for the substitute options, and maybe that's why they're starting, the players are looking a bit jaded. It's maybe partly they're looking jaded, but also they just need a bit more competition. So I'm not necessarily sure Everton need a marquee signing this summer, but they need to address some of those imbalances in the squad.
So what would be I'll ask all of you this. What do you think the next step of progression is for Everton then? Because I think correct me if I'm wrong, Adam, but I think Europe was the target this season for a lot of Everton supporters, because you need to aim high, you need to strive forward in order to bring more quality acquisitions in. I'll come to Sam then. What do you think needs to be the next stage for Everton Football Club?
Well, am I right in saying Everton sort of like to sit back and play on the counter, Adam? Would that be fair enough?
Generally speaking, yeah.
I think, well, if we're talking like that and then putting the balls through to Calvert-Lewin and Richarlison, people like these who have got real quality, like top Premier League players, like you said, I think you need someone to unlock that. I know James got injured for a good portion of the season, but hopefully if Ancelotti stays, then he can carry on working on the project and get someone in that's going to unlock that brilliant sort of forward area. So,
but where do you think, Adam, Everton need to strengthen? What areas do you need to strengthen? Because I definitely think you need a backup to Dominic Calvert-Lewin. I think that's one end, and I also think, as you said, maybe another upgrade in midfield to partner Decore and Allen. Where do you think Everton needs to strengthen in the summer?
I mean, the midfield's a big one for me.
Yeah.
You look at what we lack compared to, say, a Leicester side. That midfield, there's so much activity, there's so much pace in there, tenacity, everything we haven't got. Decore, I love Decore because he's up and down. Technically not as gifted as James, for example, but someone like him with perhaps a bit more technical ability, just to be able to, as I say, unlock defences. We haven't got that really. James does that, but then you look at Sigurdsson in the side. It's so slow. Everything is about 2 miles an hour with him.
Yeah,
you can't play counter-attacking football with Sigurdsson. Like it just doesn't work. And to be honest with you, I think we do need another striker, as you say. I've always struggled with Calvert-Lewin. I think he's great in the box, and he works so hard, but we can't just rely on him. I don't think he's quite a top 6 striker. I won't say that and probably get slated for saying that, but just, his movement in the box is fantastic, but would he get into Leicester's starting 11? I don't think so. Would he get into Chelsea? Certainly not. You have to look at it that way, and I think we're just lacking that quality, and then strength in depth as well. It really sickens me when we have to bring on a Wobie from the bench, and you do despair a bit when you look at our bench. Often 2 keepers on the bench. It's just ridiculous.
What's your opinion on James Rodriguez? Because I know he's had a bit of a stop-start season, and he's been predominantly played on the right, but I still think he lacks a bit of pace to be a true out-and-out winger. Are his times in the number 10 position over? Because we saw it in did he play there in the 2014 World Cup through the middle for Colombia? I think he did. Do you think he's better suited to that position, or would you like seeing him on the right-hand side?
I 100% think he's better in the middle. I think give him free rein, to be honest with you. I think if you put him on the right, it just constricts what he can do. I think you have to allow him free rein. That's when he's best. You saw the way he played against Liverpool. I thought that was one of his best games. He was allowed just free rein of that midfield. So it was, going right across the front line pretty much. And you saw the way, as for the first goal, he brought the ball down and played it through to Richarlison. That's what he's best at, just unlocking defences. And he can't do that as much on the right because I think he's so limited to what he can do on the right. He has to stay in that fixed position. And then on the right, if he's playing on the right, you sort of do need him to track back, and he's never going to do that, is he? So no. I think if you give him free rein in a number 10 role, I think that's where he's best.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see whether Ancelotti does that. It could be a progressive move going forward, but we'll just have to see. The next topic I really want to talk about is the regulation in football, and get all of your opinions on it, really, because it's been such a turbulent, I think, few weeks in football since the European Super League proposals came about. Gary Neville, Jamie Carragher, Jan Olga Fjortov have all been calling for this new petition that's been circulating on social media this morning, and it's calling for an independent regulator in football to control football, to stop the European Super League proposals from happening maybe in the near distant future. Amos, what did you what were your opinions when the European Super League first came about, being a Liverpool supporter? And how important is it that we do actually get some sort of regulation in football ownership?
Well, it was embarrassing when they went through with it, because it leaked out halfway through the match on the Sunday, and you just thought, what a terrible idea. There's a lot of backlash on social media. You thought, this is never going to happen now. They're clearly going to do a U-turn. But then by that evening, they announced it officially, which I think was the more shameful thing. And they'd seen the initial backlash, and they still decided to go through with it. And obviously, by the Wednesday, they had decided against it because there'd been such a big uproar. These owners, like the top 6 owners, they're businessmen, not football men. So you saw the scenes with Leicester celebrating the owner on Saturday. You won't see Liverpool players with John W. Henry doing that.
No,
up and down. That's what they are. And Liverpool owners are a bit weird, because they will act like they've got the moral high ground. They will act like they're doing the right thing for a long time, but then they'll put the staff on furlough, and then they'll be the driving force behind a Super League. So
not good luck.
But for me, it goes a bit further than just the big 6 as well. I look at the clubs that we've lost in the last few years because of bad owners. Obviously, the Berries, the Macclesfields. Last year, Wigan came close. Why there needs to be more regulation with owners, not just because for the big and rich clubs that might break away, but for the little clubs that are suffering because of owners going in, not knowing what they're doing, and basically just taking money out of the clubs and ruining it for fans.
Yeah, 100% agree with you. You touched upon, the Wigan situation. That was awful when that came about. The corruption involved in that, as well as Barry as well. It was so bad. Michael, what were your opinions on the European Super League, seeing it? Because I know one of your tweets went a bit viral, didn't it, about the proposition of Wolves and Leicester being in the Champions League, and you saying it doesn't look actually half that bad for you. So what were your opinions on it?
No, I mean, no, from that aspect, I was kind of intrigued by it all. Obviously, it's a disaster. It was a disaster, and I find it funny that it's still out there. You've still got Juventus, Barcelona, and Real holding on for dear life. But no, I did find that aspect of all these smaller teams actually playing in a league which may be more balanced really intriguing. And I was like, you know what? To these big clubs, obviously they're so important and integral to football, but go and try this project and just see how badly it will fail, because I'm adamant that it just wouldn't work. And, as are most fans, but I think in terms of, the Super League, I do think this is not the end of it. I do think this is something that will resurface in 5 to 10 years, unless, like you said, with the announcements today, proper action, proper regulations are put into place. And it doesn't just it goes way beyond domestic level. This is something that UEFA have to tackle, and they have to tackle harshly, and fingers crossed they will. How much hope I have in it, or how much power they have, I'm not so sure.
No, it's an interesting one that I think will develop, and I think there's going to be more to it. Sam, from your point of view, being an Ipswich fan, your team are in League One. How did you feel that all these greedy, rotten owners decided to, put forward these proposals and try and create something which was just so out of touch with every single football supporter in the UK?
Especially as when you're a fan of a club that has seen a bit of a decline due to the modern game. There's a lot of factors that go into that, but just to see that at such an extensive level, these teams going into this league, which would just transform the whole European football landscape in a terrible way. I'm really glad that it struck a chord with fans across the country. And I'm glad that it didn't just leave the news cycle after like 2 days, which is what normally happens with these sort of things.
Yeah.
I'm glad Gary Neville gave that passionate speech on Monday Night Football. I remember watching that, and I was with my flatmate, and we were just gobsmacked at what he was saying. We're like, we can't actually believe that he's standing up for fans like this in front of the country. But it just makes you think, like, why don't we think about? I know it's a bit different with FIFA, but why don't we expand these conversations and talk about why Qatar got the World Cup? Why is it now? Why are we now bringing these conversations up when it's only a year until the competition? Yeah. We've seen how UEFA are going to try and expand the Champions League to their sort of benefit as well. So actually, I think we can point the finger at the European Super League as much as we want, but we need to now, like what's happening, look at this 50+1 fan vote ownership.
Yeah.
But then just appreciate this is happening and has been happening already around the game for a while.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to ask all of you this. Are we at a worrying time in football in terms of what it could become, where we could end up? Because I don't think I've seen anything. I mean, I know people from not so long ago in past generations may refer to, the formation of the Premier League being a similar thing. But certainly in my lifetime, and probably in your lifetimes, I haven't experienced anything like we saw. And I think it kind of, the whole Super League proposal, it kind of, disclaimed the proposals that were put forward by UEFA for the new Champions League reforms. And I don't think enough was spoken of about that. I know players for Ilhai Gundogan came out and said something against it, but Amos, are we at a worrying time in football? Are you scared? Are you concerned for the game?
Well, the Super League won't be the end of it, because not so long before the Super League, was it Project Big Picture they were trying to implement? So after Super League's failed, there's going to be another idea. There'll be more meetings going on between all of these owners, thinking of what can we get away with next? What can we do next? What's the next idea on the list? And like what's been mentioned, UEFA seem to like take the moral high ground with the whole Super League stuff. They don't need to start doing that, because they're just their corruption. The Super League corruption outweighs UEFA's corruption, but it doesn't mean that they're saints as well. It was like two bad choices, and obviously you have to stick with what you know, because at least it rewards you for playing good football, not just money you have. But yeah, you got to keep an eye on FIFA and UEFA, because they're not squeaky clean, although they tried to act it during the last few weeks.
Adam, your opinions on the European Super League proposals and what more needs to be done to control our game?
Yeah, it was really concerning. It was quite a numb feeling when all of it came out. It was almost as if it wasn't really happening. I kept telling myself, right, this isn't going to happen. It is worrying though, because Madrid, Barca, and Juve seem intent on making it work. I think there is such a I think Gary Neville said, we respect the free market, but I think that's gone too far now. I do think that a regulatory body needs to be put in place. Otherwise, as you say, there will be more project ESLs, more project big pitches down the line, and we're just getting away from what's important, and that's fans and football, not money and greed. I think it's a concerning time, especially with regards to the pandemic. A lot of owners are trying to claw back money they've perhaps lost.
Yeah.
And I think there'll be sort of a desperate scramble for funds, and I'm concerned as to where they'll generate those funds from new leagues, or like leagues exactly like the ASL. And I think it's definitely a very worrying time for football, and we're at a bit of a crossroads. We've got to pick the right way.
Yeah. It's certainly a situation that's going to develop as time goes on. And I think that there's going to be more things that will come out from it. Certainly, I don't think everything has been exposed in terms of the scandalous and corruptious events that were happening throughout it, and it's it's worrying for the game, and I think a lot of people share the concerns as well. So we'll be touching upon it on the perspective as time goes on. But at the moment, we're now going to be turning to you guys and your times as supporters. Michael, I'm going to come to you first. You're a Wolves supporter and you're also a Wolves commentator. You super fan. How would you assess Wolves this season so far? Before we touch on about your commentary with Wolves, but how would you assess their season so far? Do you think it is purely down to the miss of Raul Jimenez that you've maybe dropped below your standard?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of describing the season, I'd just describe it as transitional. I think the clubs that are trying to change as much as Wolves are in the last few years, and Wolves are actually ahead of where they wanted to be. Their target was actually, with Foes and the owners, the target was promotion in 3 seasons, and they did it in 2, and in 7th place. They were just looking for consolidation. And, when teams supersede their expectations, naturally, when we saw with Jota, although Jota wasn't necessarily a starter, he got poached by Liverpool. Doherty went to Tottenham, and Wolves tried to replace it. I think they've tried to go down a more sort of aesthetic route this season with some of the players they brought in, the likes of Nelson Semedo, as well as all these young players. And like you said, like the injury to Jimenez has been hugely detrimental to our season. I mean, I don't think we would have been knocking on the door of top 7, but maybe. I mean, we're not super far off, but there's so many problems with Wolves this season, especially in defence, and it's been a difficult season, and I think it's been really hard to take into context sometimes, but I think you just have to suck it up a little bit and just accept it for what it is. This can be a forgettable season for us. We've not been able to go to games. Hopefully the board get it right in the summer and we're in a position to push on really. And, I'm still quite optimistic about sort of the whole project and everything really.
Do you pick Conor Cody over Tyrone Mings to the Euros?
Yeah, I do pick Conor Cody over Tyrone Mings, but I do believe there may be other contenders who may be preferred over Conor Cody. I mean, it depends what Southgate's going to do. I think if you want to play a back 3, Conor Cody could be brilliant at it. In terms of his passing range, he probably has the best passing range of an England defender, but that's with time. And I think there's some players, when you look at John Stones, who are much more comfortable under pressure than him. And if you play him in a back 2, I think his defensive frailties will be seriously exposed, especially at against the bigger teams, which England you'd hope we will be facing. So I'd be really, he's a great person, so I'd be absolutely delighted for him to go. But I could understand if he wasn't taken.
And quickly touching upon, briefly, I think Conor Cody would probably go for me over Tyrone Mings. But you touch upon your commentary. You do commentary for Wolves. It's audio commentary? Is that right?
Yeah, it's audio description commentary, which is for visually impaired fans. So it is very much describing everything that's happening on the pitch. It's not it's typical contextual commentary you may get on TV.
And how different is that? Is it a lot harder?
I don't know, because I don't have too much experience doing the others apart from like on FIFA and from a bedroom and stuff. But I would say I'd say the speed of it honestly sounds more like horse racing than it does football. It's really tiring. You've got to make sure you're quite prepared for it. It's very intense, but if anybody does want to listen, and sorry for the shameless linking, on my Twitter or on the Wolves TV, you can follow any of the games through the audio description and be me or one of the 3 other excellent commentators we have.
I love the little plug you've just done there. Very cheeky of you. So I'll come on to Sam. Sam, you are an Ipswich fan. What was the last Ipswich game you went to?
Oh my God. What a question. I can't remember I honestly can't remember the last Ipswich game I went to.
Really?
Yeah, I don't remember at all.
What was the first Ipswich game you went to then?
No real football fan can remember the first game they went to. I can't actually remember. That's been so long, hasn't it? I mean, I'm in Sheffield for uni. Before the pandemic started, so Didn't really get to that many games before. But yeah, how unreal! I can't remember the last match I went to. That's how long it's been. No, but I can't wait to get back into Portman Road. Like, unbelievable, especially with these new owners.
Yeah. So what's your opinions on the new owners and the progression under Paul Cook?
This is.
Do you think? I mean, where do you see it switching the next year or so? Do you want to be pushing for promotion next season? Is that a target for you then?
Definitely pushing for promotion next season. Paul Cook's come in and sort of got rid of a few players, few bits of dead weight that most fans knew that we had to get rid of if we were ever going to start progressing out of League One. I think we're linked with Sonny Bradley, Luton defender at the moment.
Yeah.
That's positive that we've got these players that are potentially turning down on Championship clubs to come and join this project at Ipswich. But yeah, I think from what I can see, I think promotion's got to be the aim next season. That being said, I wanted to bring this up when we're talking about the Super League. The new owners of Ipswich are a US consortium, ex-bankers. And when they first came in, I was really happy, really excited. As you probably saw on my Twitter, I did like a very long thread about how amazing it was. But then this European Super League thing, it does cast a little bit of doubt in your mind, because now I'm thinking, well, what's going to happen to this community club that so many people around where we live appreciate? That's been basically like my life since forever. And like, what's going to happen? What are they going to do to the club? Is it going to go sour, or are they going to be sort of like what Leicester's owners are like? Is it going to be that real bond? I guess we can't judge and say anything too soon.
Well, was there a lot of positivity when the takeover did actually happen with your supporters?
Absolutely massive. I can't remember the year Marcus Evans, our former owner, joined. I think it was in the mid 2000s. Obviously, I was only young then, so don't remember the details. But I don't care what anyone says. We've seen a decline in our club over the last couple of decades, and now we're sat in League One. Obviously, got rid of Paul Lambert, and yeah, we just needed that change. We needed that sort of group to give us an opportunity. And I do think, purely because from Paul Cook's record, Wigan, I think he did the same at Portsmouth as well, where he's got rid of all these players and brought in a new squad. I think it's going to be brilliant. I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that he can do the same for us. So,
well, fingers crossed for all you. I hope Ipswich do well and progress and hopefully get the promotion you deserve. Quickly, actually, do a lot of Ipswich supporters kind of reminisce in your period in the 80s under Bobby Robson? What are your opinions on that? Do you look back? I know obviously you look back at it with fond memories, but do you feel sometimes supporters, look at that period in your history and think, oh, that's where we need to be and that's where we should be? That kind of, thinking?
Well, if anyone wants to listen to my take on Ipswich season 1981, you can always listen to Adam Stanworth's football podcast, Sheedy Goes to the Other Side. If you search that on Spotify, you'll hear me banging on about Ipswich for an hour or something. But yeah, see, that sort of reminiscence is good, because you got to be proud of the things you've done. You've got to be proud of the major trophies that you've won. But yeah, I think some older fans do get hung up on it a little bit too much. That's what I was saying to Adam in the podcast a few weeks ago. I think we need to start looking forward now. We've got a real chance to do that, not just on the pitch, but in all aspects of sort of life at Portman Road. So, yeah, it's good to look back, but I think it's a new era Ipswich now. I'm just hoping it is, because we've heard this so many times over the last few years. But yeah, it has all the ingredients to be fantastic. So.
I mean, yeah, well, hopefully we'll see some good things happening to Ipswich. I'll come to Amos. Amos, you're a Liverpool supporter. When was your first Liverpool match, if you can remember?
I remember most recent. My first one, it probably would have been mid-2000s. It probably would have been originally a game against Wigan at the DW, or it would have been the JJB then. So at the closest stadium. In terms of first game, I can't tell you the exact first game. I remember being absolutely dumbstruck at Anfield, thinking, "Wow, what a place!" But I couldn't tell you what happened or who we were against or who we played.
Yeah, I mean, what is your? I mean, you've obviously been a supporter since you were young. What's your opinions on Liverpool? I mean, we've touched upon it earlier, but what are your opinions of Liverpool at the moment? You obviously went through, this amazing peak where you won the Premier League, you won the Champions League, and you probably would have won the Premier League had it not been for a fantastic Manchester City side that got 98 points, because you got 97 points that season as well. And in any other season, you probably would have won it. So there was obviously going to come a blip at some point, as that happens with every single club. But how do you feel as a Liverpool supporter at the moment? Do you feel there's been too much of a drop off, perhaps?
I don't think next season. I don't think we need to do much to our squad. I think obviously injuries have played their part this season. Losing Van Dijk, obviously he's a fantastic player, but out of our usual centre backs, he was the only consistently fit one as well. I would trust, if Joe Gomez and Matip were fit and constantly fit, I would trust them two for the time that Van Dijk's been out. But the minute he got injured, I thought them two can't finish the season. And it was more unfortunate than even I thought it would be, with just the constant niggles, and obviously Gomez has been a bad one. That was long term.
Yeah.
I'm playing Reece Williams. I actually knew of Reece Williams, not because he was a Liverpool youth player, but because he was on loan at Kidderminster last year, and I reported on a game between Southport and Kidderminster. So that's why I remember him. And I spoke to one of the Southport players when he made his debut in the Champions League. I was like, "What was he like when you played against him?" And they said, I can't believe his luck. I played against him, and I think, wow, what a top defender. He's going to go on to amazing things. I didn't think anything of it. Yeah. So when you're playing him, obviously, well, Phillips has been amazing in my opinion. I've really enjoyed watching Nat Phillips. He's really done his very good job for us. But when you're losing, not just losing centre backs, we've also lost Henderson and Fabinho in midfield at times because they've been forced to step back into defence. So it's been completely a mess at times.
And so you've heard the debates about Thiago. He's obviously a fantastic footballer. I mean, he's on his day, he was one of my favourite players to watch. He probably still is, but he was criticised a lot early on during his time at Liverpool for, not impacting the team as much, not playing on the high foot, maybe not really suiting Jurgen Klopp's style of play. But since Fabinho has come in, he's looked a lot better next to him. Do you think that was the key for maybe unlocking Thiago?
Yeah, I think he had a bit of a baptism of fire because he got injured in the game against Everton.
Yeah.
So Richarlison there. And then he was out for a few months, and he came back just as we started our really bad run. And he was in sort of like a midfield three where he was like the holding midfielder, which would normally be Fabinho. So Fabinho coming back has released him to play his normal game. And I'd also say it's not entirely his fault. Adapting to a new club, and it doesn't help when the front three, apart from Salah, hasn't been sharp.
Yeah.
At times, obviously Mane he's admitted himself, it's not been his best season. Firmino hasn't been himself for 12 months now, really. So I think that's also played its part. You can only play so many passes onto people for it, then he can only do so much for the other players to then finish and move off. So I do think next season a midfield three of Thiago, Fabinho and Henderson would be exciting to watch. I look forward to that.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, that is a sensational midfield three. Where, if anywhere, where do you think Liverpool do need to strengthen this season? Because there has been a drop off, and I know you've had loads of injuries, but as you touched upon, the front three haven't been as firing as much other than Salah. Do you think there needs to be new acquisitions on that front then?
For me, I'd go for a new number 9 because out of the three of them, I think Firmino's the one who's dropped off most. I'm not saying we should sell Firmino because on his day, he still produces great performances. In our team, the reason we've had success is because of him, I'd say. He's been the engine. He's the unselfish player in the front three. He works hard. He tracks back. I know people laugh at him, people saying he's a defensive striker, but that's what he is. The way he just tracks back and pressurises. He's opened the space for Mane and Salah to have so much success. And at times, the reason we've not worked this season is because he's not been playing the same way.
Yeah.
So probably bringing a new centre forward. I presume Divock Origi will be leaving the club. So probably Firmino off the bench and swapping between a new striker and him would be a massive upgrade compared to Origi being the option off the bench. That's no disrespect to Origi. If you just put together his highlights, really, you think he was Ballon d'Or winner from what he's done in big games. Just the bits in between that haven't been sensational.
Yeah, I mean, I agree in the sense that I do think you probably need a new striker. I don't think Roberto Firmino has been firing as much as he previously did before, especially when you were kind of building that momentum. And I think he beat what was the goal when Salah scored from almost the halfway line against City? What year was that? Was it
2017? I think would have been his first.
It was something like that.
2018 January.
Yeah.
I think.
That's when I thought Firmino was at his best. Going into the season then. But Adam, you're a diehard Everton supporter. Do you remember your first game as an Everton fan? And we will touch upon because I know you're a lover of Serie A as well. But let's talk to me about you being an Everton fan. Where did it stem from?
Well, to be honest with you, I had no choice in the matter. As most football fans don't have any choice in the team they support. I think that's the correct way to be brought up. So obviously gone through Moyes era, then the succession of managers that haven't really worked out. So it's been a case of the Everton team instilling a bit of hope and then them taking it away a week or so later. That's been the constant theme of my time supporting Everton. I can't remember my first game, to be honest. But it was probably a 1-1 draw. No one knows. Like a drab game. But I think we've had so many false dawns, it's become a bit of a joke. When Martinez came, that was supposed to be a new dawn, and then that all went pear-shaped quite quickly after the 13-14 season. Then we have obviously Koeman coming in. I think he's universally disliked at Goodison Park.
Yeah,
I can't tell you one Everton fan who likes that man. I think we join England fans in our hatred for Ronald Koeman. Obviously, Ronald Koeman being a big factor in England not qualifying all those years ago for the World Cup. Then we had Big Sam, or as he's affectionately known at Goodison as the Count of Monte Visto. That season was dire. That was really dire.
I can imagine.
The football was poor, and I can't really think of too many highlights. I think probably the equaliser at Anfield in December was probably the highlight.
Was that the Rooney penalty?
The Rooney penalty, yeah. And maybe his goal from the halfway line. Other than that, it was pretty drab. And then under Silva, I liked Silva. And you know what? I think he's a fantastic coach because you can see the way he shaped certain players. Like he was fantastic with Richarlison. I just think tactically, he was just a bit naive. I would have loved it for him to work out Everton. I really would. I think he is a phenomenal coach.
Yeah.
I mean, if he was at any club's backroom staff, he'd enhance the team no end. I just don't think he's a manager. There's a difference, I think.
Yeah, it was a weird one with Silva because I remember him coming through. He started at Hull, didn't he? His main managerial job in England was at Hull, and I was really, really impressed with him. And I thought he was going to do really well for you guys, but it just clearly didn't work out. No clue why.
I think the players stopped playing for him. I think they cost him the job.
Really?
I think that's the general consensus. I think he was out of his depth. There's no doubt about it. I think it was too maybe prestigious a role for him. Not just saying that, but I don't think he's quite a top 10 manager. But good coach, as I said. Obviously now we've got Carlo, and for me, he can do no wrong in my eyes. I'm still in disbelief that he's actually manager of my football club. But it's been a pretty boring roller coaster. Basically, that's my Yeah, that's how I'd sum up being an
That's
Everton
a
fan
nice summer. That's a nice
since
summary.
2004. Yeah.
Well, you also have a love for Serie A. You do a lot of writing for Serie A. I know Michael does as well. What's your assessment on Serie A this season? Do you think it's going to be more exciting next season with Mourinho being at Roma?
Oh yeah, that'll be good. I've loved it this season because Juventus have dropped off, and it largely stems from Agnelli, who is a big part of the Super League. I can't stand the man, and I can't stand the corruption. The history of corruption in that club. Every single title's had a little asterisk next to it with Juventus, and they're the one club in Serie A I cannot stand. So if they're not winning the league, then I'm happy. I've got a soft spot for Parma. Like they're my team, but unfortunately, look like they're heading for Serie B this season. But no, it's been a really good season. I mean, Inter have been phenomenal under Conte. Conte's just revolutionised the way they play. It's fast paced. I think Lukaku's been sensational. Lara Martinez as well.
Do you think that looking at Conte, Michael, you come into this as well because I know you like Serie A as well. Everybody come into this. Do you think Conte somewhat underappreciated because of his time in England? Because a lot of Chelsea supporters, they didn't really like the negative aspects to his game, which was like the three at the back, playing with the wing backs. I think to be honest with you, that title winning season where you have Victor Moses as the wing back, I thought that they were sensational. But do you think he is underappreciated, Antonio Conte?
Yeah, I think he is underappreciated, but I do think he does contribute to that himself. I mean, he does fit the image that he builds of himself as this overly passionate, overly sort of bitter. He's got too much bite to him. He'll say stuff against players. He'll divide dressing rooms, and he has a history of doing it, and he'll divide relationships with the board as well. And that is one of the big concerns with him, similar to what Mourinho did maybe 10 years ago, but with the success. And I think he did that to an extent with the dressing room at Chelsea, did it with the board at Juventus, and he's had his fair few issues with Inter Milan as well. But in terms of a manager and what he can do with his team, it's absolutely sensational. I think what his best attribute is he seems to always get a group of players who, you look at the Juventus team and you look at the Inter teams in particular, and the squad's not got a history of winners. And he's got such a good, obviously he had such a highly illustrious playing career, Champions League medals with Juventus in the 90s. And he's got such a good ability to instill that winning belief. And of course, he's got this brilliant tactical system and coaching to go alongside it. He is the full package in terms of what you see on the pitch, but what you get off the pitch is leaves a lot to be desired. And I think that is just, why maybe Real Madrid in the past have steered away from him, and maybe why other big clubs have, including maybe Manchester United at times as well.
Are you both then excited for next season in Serie A? I mean, considering Zinedine Zidane might leave Real Madrid, there's potential talk of him maybe taking up the Juventus job. Whether that happens, I don't know, but it would obviously add an even bigger dynamic to tune into Italian football. But where do you see Italian football as it is now, Adam? Do you think it's on the rise again to what we kind of saw similarly in the 90s?
100%. I think it is. Look at the managers that have come into the Italian game. They're big names, they're huge names. Conte, from his time in England, I think is star rocketed. I think Jose going there, that'll pull in so many viewers, especially for Roma games. Lazio dropped off this season, but I think they're still a really exciting side under Simone Inzaghi. I think there's plenty of cause for optimism going forward for Serie A. They've had, since the mid 2000s, it's been on a real serious decline. And I think that's largely a fall in pull factor. They haven't had that pull factor since the mid 2000s really. And I think they're rediscovering it now. Players want to play there. It seems like it's a place where you can revive a career. Look at Ashley Young. He's been a linchpin in that. That Inter side. And he was an outcast at United. So I think it could be an attractive destination for a lot of players. And as you say, with Mourinho coming in, that will pull a lot of views in just purely because of him. Because of the pull he has. So yeah, I think it's an exciting time for Serie A, and I think some really real cause for optimism going forward.
I mean, that's a lovely way to finish it there. I mean, before we finish up, I'm just going to go around and get your predictions on who's going to be promoted to the Premier League, who's going to take that final spot. I'll start with Amos. Who are you going to back?
I'm going with Brentford.
Brentford?
Last year came so close.
Yeah.
We've got the experience now, and I think we've got a very good squad and a very good manager. I'd love to see them in the Prem.
Sam?
I want Barnsley, but I'm going to say Brentford as well.
Yeah. Adam?
Michael and I spoke to the Res Report, the Barnsley podcast. Off the back of that, I've got to back Barnsley.
Barnsley? Michael?
Yeah, I'm completely. My head tells me Barnsley will absolutely not go up, but my heart really does. So I'm going to go with Adam and say Barnsley also.
Yeah, I'm going to have to go Barnsley as well, just because. It's really exciting what's happening under there. Valerian Ismail is a brilliant manager, where he's obviously come back and worked on himself, and I do hope they go up. But thank all of you so much for coming on The Perspective. You've been brilliant guests. I hope you come on again. It's been a brilliant hour. Make sure everybody who listens to this podcast to tune in. I'll link them in the comment section, but tune into all their individual podcasts. That they've got a fantastic thing going on. They're great ideas, and they're going to go far, 100%. But make sure you like, share, and subscribe, and follow The Perspective on all streaming platforms. And we'll see you again for the next one. Cheers.